Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the stories of some of America's most successful lawyers, figuring out what makes them tick, how they creatively solve problems, and how others aspiring to be them can follow in their footsteps.
Okay, great. So welcome to another episode of Latte with a Lawyer. Today, we got an interesting guest here from Las Vegas, Nevada, Las Vegas, Garrett Chase from the firm of Shumway and Van. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jonathan. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So just to kick off the session here and keep with the theme, tell me what your favorite morning beverage is to get you going.
Oh, man. Well, I'm originally from Montana, and then I did my undergrad in Seattle. So the answer to that question used to be just straight black coffee. But being out here in Vegas about 10 years ago, I made the switch to energy drinks. So it's usually it's a cold energy drink.
Really? So no coffee at all?
Nope. Something about the carbonation or something. It just helps wake me up. So
interesting. Yeah. Well,
yep.
Seattle's best, right? Seattle's best coffee.
That's it.
There's some good coffee that comes out of that part of the world for sure.
Oh yeah, I drank enough to float a small boat, so I figure that's got my lifetimes full and moved on.
Got it. Well, actually, I cut off except for seltzer water because I like the carbonation too. I used to be like a Pepsi and Coke addict. I totally quit that cold turkey.
Apparently, it's terrible for you, so it's good for you, and maybe one day I'll get there.
Yeah, but coffee I definitely have. I mean, coffee I'm good for at least 2 or 3.
Yeah.
During the week. So
anyway. There you go.
So tell me about what you looks like you do civil commercial litigation. Tell us about what you do and your practice.
Absolutely. Yeah. So our firm Shumway Van primarily does commercial civil litigation. And then within that, my practice focuses on mostly contract and real estate disputes, a lot of lien disputes, some construction disputes, which are very popular out here. And then I also do the firm's appeals, and that's appellate work is really my favorite thing that I do. So that's anytime I get a chance to do one of those things, I'll jump into it.
Why is that your favorite?
It's a lot of reasons. One, it's just very clean. I always tell people it's a very clean practice area. It's it's a closed record. Nobody's trying to surprise anybody. It's very sophisticated. The process is well established. There's no discovery and lots of motion work. It's for the most part you pour all your time into this closed record, and you put together one really polished brief. The other side puts together a polished brief, and then you get the last word, and then oral argument, as opposed to being in state court where you're one of 50 cases that judge is hearing that morning. You're sitting there in front of a panel of Supreme Court justices and kind of getting to go back and forth. And something about the rush of arguing with those people on the bench is it's weirdly fun. So
oh, good. That's interesting. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about that process. Most of the people that we talk to are plaintiff attorneys and they're jury trial attorneys. So I admittedly I don't know that much about it, but so I saw your background as a software engineer, right? Does that have something to do with it, maybe?
I think so. The software engineering really helps weirdly on the kind of the problem solving side. So just looking at things from different angles and kind of, being able to go in and really break things down to their smallest form. I think I get a lot of that help from software engineering, which a lot of people don't think is a real transferable skill to, arguing in a courtroom. But it definitely helped me. And I think that's also part of it. I'm very reason-based, what's the logic behind this? Let's really break this thing apart and look at whatever the law says and really dive into that analysis. So
well, that's interesting. I mean, so we're kindred spirits here because I have an undergraduate degree in engineering too.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm a civil engineer, but I did a bunch of programming along the way. But I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The skill set of problem solving, I've used that my whole life. It's really, really helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I mean, it's maybe sometimes to a fault, right? Because you're very logical about it. If it doesn't make sense, right?
That's it. Being too logical, especially, a large part of my practice is on the litigation side. It's, jury trials and things like that. And so I have to kind of take a step back sometimes and maybe be less logical and err on the emotional side with some of those arguments. But but no, across the board, it's definitely helpful.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. And we'll touch on the whole emotional thing a little bit later, but that's interesting that you said that, because at the end of the day, you do have a jury, right?
That's it.
And they respond emotionally and less about logic.
That's it.
Right? Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
for sure. Okay, so interesting. So it's funny. I talked to someone earlier today that was also did plaintiff work on behalf of construction
Okay.
as well. So why is that a big thing? Well, I guess it may be because there's a lot of building and construction out there.
There's a ton of building and construction out here. Yeah, I mean, the Las Vegas Valley has just exploded in the last 10 years, and there's been a lot of kind of push back and forth with lobbyists on statutory regulation of construction defect cases and construction contractors diligence requirements and all kinds of things. And so there just ends up being a lot both commercial and residential to do there. And so if you get involved in contract disputes and business disputes, sooner or later you end up in the construction realm.
Got it. Are you on the defense side or the plaintiff side?
A little bit of both, honestly, and
Okay.
with especially with contract disputes and business disputes, it's sort of a less clear delineation. With tort litigation and injury litigation, which I've also done a bit of, right? There's plaintiff side, and it's the plaintiff was hurt or damaged in some
Sure.
way, and so they're going after all the bad guys, and those are the defendants. With contract disputes and business disputes, it's a lot more gray, and so it's very often an instance where it's sort of a he said, she said. There's claims and counterclaims and third-party claims, and everybody's fighting everybody, and so we do a lot of that work.
Got it. How do you like living in Las Vegas?
I warmed up to it.
Yeah.
When I first moved here, I thought, it'll be a temporary stay. I thought my wife and kids, well, yeah, we'll move on eventually, and it's you don't have to shovel sunshine, right? It's it's once you get away from the strip, there's a lot here to kind of explore and do that people don't always realize is here, and there's little sort of microcosms out away from the strip that are real nice, and so I at least for the moment I'm stuck. So
How long have you been there?
a little over a decade.
Oh, a long time.
So
No,
yeah,
yeah, okay, a long time. I mean, I've been to Las Vegas many times, and you're right. When you get off the strip, it's really quite interesting.
it is, and there's all these little suburbs almost that are really great communities, fantastic restaurants, good people, parks and things that people just overlook because I mean, admittedly, the strip sort of steals the show for most people that come here and visit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So I know you have 4 kids, I see.
I do. Yep.
Wow. So you're busy.
Busy, definitely busy. Lots of school things. My boys are a little bit older, and so I've got 2 that are taking college courses out here. But it seems like I'm constantly going to volleyball games or choir concerts or something.
Oh yeah, that's very cool. Excellent. That's good stuff.
It is.
Cool. So let me ask you a question. So this is sort of a classic question, but if you could think of one, like what's the most memorable case that you worked on that stands out?
Oh man, that is a tough question. There have been a lot, and for somebody that does real estate litigation, I know a lot of people sometimes look at that and go, it must be really boring, and it's just not. There's
Yeah.
just a bunch of fascinating, weird things that people choose to do, and you got to kind of jump in and
Well, you
think
get a lot of
critically about
weird
it.
characters in that business for sure. That's
Oh
interesting,
man,
right?
a lot of weird characters,
Yeah.
especially out here. And there's a whole poker scene, and so those guys come out and do investments that blow up, and there's a lot of weird characters. But I think one of my most memorable cases was actually a tort litigation case I worked on for a few years, and there's actually aspects of it that are technically still ongoing, and so it's one of those ones that's just a massive ordeal. But we throughout the litigation process, there were multiple interlocutory appeals, which is to say that there are appeals that pop up midstream in litigation, things that go up to the Supreme Court for some decision on a motion or something like that. And so there was one specific issue that was very complex. It had to do with the Nevada Constitution and with these various statutes and regulations and how they affected the state bar and these due process concerns and this whole jurisdictional issue. So it was a real can of worms, legally speaking. But it was the first time I got to argue before an en banc panel of the Supreme Court, which is all 7 justices. It was when I was sort of a younger attorney, and I hadn't been at this firm very long, and so was also kind of a proving grounds for me with some of the senior partners. And so I got to do all the briefing, went up against a very good attorney on the other side, and got to argue against him. And he's been practicing probably 20 years longer than I have. Got to go in, into the Supreme Court building, do the whole oral argument thing, and then actually got a favorable outcome. And so just that whole process, again, I love the appeals. I got to do my favorite thing. I was being scrutinized pretty closely, but I always, I was confident throughout the whole deal. And for being kind of a law nerd, all of the different issues overlapping, it was just sort of like my dream job all rolled into one case. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So I'm sure that sort of, there's nothing like success to breed success. That probably catapulted you forward, I would imagine.
It did. The senior partners were much more comfortable with me handling appeals after that going forward. And I got the chance to argue again a number of times in front of the Nevada Supreme Court, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. I got to do some amicus briefs for companies where we get to jump into somebody else's fight and kind of say, this is our thought on the issue. And so, yeah, it was definitely a jumping off point, and it brought me a lot of other work that I really loved. So
interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
So how'd you get started? I mean, why'd you pick law, and how'd you get into it?
So it's sort of a weird story. As you said, I was an engineer. I did my undergrad in Seattle. I actually worked a contract with Microsoft right out of my undergrad.
You go to Washington? You go to the University of Washington?
No, so I went to a tech school out there down just in southern Seattle, and I really loved it. I still love Seattle. I love that whole area out there. But it's for the tech scene, and especially the software engineering scene, it's ridiculously competitive. So I came out here for sunnier weather and some different opportunities. I actually worked at a video game studio for a few years, which was very interesting. And throughout the process, I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, but by the end of it, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. and so I kind of was kicking around some various ideas. My wife suggested, she's like, you should go to law school. You'd make a really good lawyer. And I sat back and I thought, no, there's no way. I've never thought about going to law school. I wasn't on the debate team or anything in high school, but I kicked around for a couple of weeks and just got weirdly attached to it. And I was like, what, I think I would love being an attorney. So I guess I'll try taking the LSAT, and if it works out, then I'll just keep following this process until I hit a roadblock. And put together my own study plan, jumped in, did very well on the LSAT, and ended up getting a full tuition academic scholarship out here to the Boyd School of Law at UNLV, and just sort of rode that train and found myself practicing a few years later. So
excellent. That's a great story.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes a good lawyer? Like, what advice would you give to somebody starting, and what do you think would make a good lawyer?
Man, I think any number of things. I know a bunch of very good attorneys out here that come from just ridiculously diverse backgrounds. But I think if I had to narrow it down, I'd say, people who can combine sort of a weird mix of being able to appeal to the emotional side of these things and be a good listener and connect with their clients and with the court or the jury emotionally, but also have a little, cooler, collected, logical side to approach these things. Obviously, there's a lot of writing and oral advocacy that goes into this stuff. So people that are able to write well and usually speak well, I think that's a huge part of it. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to also, just being able to really problem solve and think critically about these things. So many attorneys that I see that struggle come into this thing with sort of a playbook, and they sit down and they go, well, this is the next thing we do because that's just what we do. And that doesn't always work. Every single case that walks in is a little bit different.
Right.
And so being able to look at those things and really kind of dissect them and say, what is the real issue here? What is the issue between these two people? Is it a 7-figure, damages argument, or is this guy really just looking to make a point and getting an apology, or, whatever the case may be? I think that makes a huge difference. And then I would also pass on advice that I got my first day of law school at an orientation. They had some recently graduated attorneys come in, and they said, if you had one piece of advice to give to all these law students about, going to law school and then practicing out here in Vegas, what would it be? And someone just said, don't be a jerk. And you know what? It's even for a growing city, it's a small legal community, and that advice has definitely rang true. You run into the same people over and over again. There's some amount of cooperation even when you're on different sides of a lawsuit. And so being able to work with other people and communicate is a
Yeah.
huge part of that.
Yeah. I noticed that there is a lot of collaboration with lawyers, right?
There is. No, when I was in law school, I got an internship at the DA's office, which is in the courthouse out here. And so I spent 3 days a week just in the courtroom watching these attorneys and kind of watching how they approach juries and arguments and things. And it's so funny to watch these criminal trials where in front of the jury, the defense attorney and the prosecutor are at each other's throats, and they're sharp tonguing each other and all this stuff. And then the jury gets excused and they walk over and ask how their families are doing and joking and, and you just don't really, in TV shows and even in, what the jury sees, you just don't see that level of collaboration, but it's definitely there in all aspects of litigation.
Right. Got to call Saul, right?
That's, yeah, that's it.
Have you started watching the new season?
I haven't. I caught up through about season 3, so I got to sit down and just binge 4 and 5 and get ready for 6. I think at some point.
It's a great show.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my God! But it's in Las Vegas, right? Isn't it set in Las Vegas?
I think it's out in New Mexico, or at least the first
New
2
Mexico.
seasons were.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
You're right. I knew it was the South. You're right. I apologize. It's
Yeah,
New Mexico. Yes.
No, it's the same weather area,
Similar.
basically.
Yeah. Anyway, just great characters.
Oh yeah.
Which actually, is a prequel to Breaking Bad.
Yeah. And it's funny. When the show was first coming out, I remember hearing that there were law professors out here that would show clips from it in ethics classes and things. Just because there's, for all the theatrical elements and whatnot, there are some elements in there that are actually pretty accurate portrayals of some of the aspects of practice, and hopefully not all of them, but but some of them. So
yeah, no, I've learned a lot just from having these conversations, and by doing business with lawyers, just about the strategy and tactics, and it's quite interesting actually.
It really is, and honestly, that's one of the funnest parts of my job is getting into that strategy. It's very much, like I said before, if you're running a playbook, that's, it's not a great approach, and you're going to set yourself up for problems. But being able to sit back and look at this stuff and, okay, how do we craft this language? And, the other side wants to introduce this. How do we prepare for that or get around that? Or, yeah, lots of strategy.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing with like in business, right? Like you have a framework or a playbook, but those are just sort of guidelines, right? You have to do a lot of sort of pivoting inside of the framework, right? It can't be that rigid, maybe is what you're saying, right? You have to be able to adapt.
That's absolutely it. Yeah, everybody's governed by the rules of civil procedure and the rules of ethics. But it's, it's like the rules of any game, right? You got these rules that kind of set the boundaries, and then you've got to figure out what makes the most sense for what your client needs or what your client wants to get out of it. And so there's a lot of play, and people that don't practice law will always say, well, why can't it just be black and white? Isn't the law just laid out black and white? And you're like, well, it can't really be. And it's supposed to have this kind of built-in play because it's got to appeal to every single situation that's out there.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, I think it makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, that way you get to the truth. I mean, if both sides argue vigorously on both sides, what's interesting to me is you can have two very skilled lawyers arguing, but at the end of the day, in the middle, you have a jury, right? That decides your fate, right? Which is, and they're not as informed. So that's the trick.
That's exactly it. And I've heard all kinds of interesting, bizarre stories of about what juries kind of get hung up on or what they end up basing their decision on. And you can have two incredible attorneys up there. And once you submit those arguments and the jury goes back to deliberate, it's a whole different world.
Yeah. That's what, I'm not sure if that's good or bad. I don't know. I haven't decided on that.
I don't think you're alone in that. I think there's a number of people that are undecided on whether that's good or bad. But it's and it's one of those things where it's like it's a weird system, but it works, right? It's been working for hundreds of years, and most of the time those guys and girls go back into that room, they deliberate, and they come out with the right answer, and you're like, yes, that's pretty incredible.
It is. It really is incredible. So, let me ask you a question. So, as you are preparing for your case, how do you do that? What kind of tools you use? How do you prepare? How do you make sure that you've got your argument correct and you've done the pivoting and analysis to win, to prevail?
Oh man, a number of things. A lot of times, we do a lot of sort of internal, I call it red teaming, but people, soundboarding, whatever you want to call it. But I'll walk down the hall to the senior partner, Michael Van's office, and I'll go in there and say, okay, here's the situation I'm up against. Here's the argument I want to make. Poke holes in it. What am I missing? And a lot of it is just doing that throughout the process. Some of these lawsuits go 2, 3, 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
And attorneys have a lot of lawsuits. And so it's making sure that a lot of the preparation is just making sure that you're organized enough to not lose track of things, right? Got those organizational things in there, and that you're making yourself aware of every single thing that pops up. And it does take a lot of time, but it's just kind of that going back every day and saying, okay, what's new? What just popped up? Okay, what do we do with this situation? And thinking critically about it, and then getting those different opinions. And so, yeah, we here at Show Me Van, a lot of our preparations, we have very much an open door policy. We're very collaborative. So some of the younger associates will pop into my office or into Mike's office and run a new thing by us, and we'll kind of argue back and forth. And every once in a while, we'll do, especially with bigger arguments or opening and closings for jury trials and whatnot, we'll kind of do a mock trial or a mock argument setup.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Room.
You do mock trials, you do focus groups, you do those kind of things.
We do, and we don't do focus groups as much, but we will do a mock trial or a mock argument, and just have attorneys kind of sit around and kind of get that dry run out of the way, so you're ready to go into court and do it that way.
Yeah, interesting. What other kinds of technology do you guys use at the firm?
So we use a lot of technology, mostly to on the organizational side. So we've got a client management tool called Kiro. I know for a while we used Clio, which is another big tool out there, but that helps immensely in just sort of tracking where the case is.
Litify, you heard of that one? Litify?
I have heard of Litify. I haven't used it, but yeah, okay. Litify is another one. And so we use a lot of the technology on that side. Everybody uses Office and SharePoint and whatnot. Everybody, shifted to cloud and encrypted storage and all that. So we use all of that.
Okay.
We use Westlaw, of course, which has become just ridiculously sophisticated. I know that, one of the focuses of the show is about sort of the role technology is playing, and that's an example of, I mean, you can pull metrics and things in Westlaw that give you just incredibly detailed information about judges and how they decide certain types of motions or certain types of issues, the things that 10 and 20 years ago just would have been completely unheard of because of the time it takes to kind of get at all that data. And so we definitely use Westlaw in those instances,
so they're applying a lot of data science to case history. Westlaw?
Yeah. So. Yep. So they have all sorts of tools and things that will assess. Yeah. I mean, give you metrics on, what this judge does under these circumstances and what this group of judges does. And I think that's, the legal industry is very interesting right now because there's so much technology out there and there's so many technological solutions out there that are really kind of changing how lawyers practice law and how they run their firms. And at the same time, especially a lot of the bigger firms, national and international firms, a lot of the people that are in charge of running and managing those firms are sort of these attorneys that are nearing the end of their careers, right? That have been practicing for 30 years. And so I think in the next 10 to 15 years, for sure, there's going to be much more of an emphasis on technology, just for that reason, as some of those older attorneys, kind of step back and the younger attorneys jump into the driver's seat and kind of push in those directions.
Yeah. So are you guys, but it sounds like you guys you're open to using technology and you're embracing it.
Absolutely. And I think you have to, judges are out there using Westlaw, looking all this stuff up. And just organizationally, there's attorneys are taking more and more cases, and I with all the tools available out there, I think attorneys are wise to put them to use. And
and COVID naturally accelerated the use, right? Of a lot
that's absolutely that's a great example. I mean, when COVID hit, all of the courts out here went 100% remote. Everything before that, time had been, you've got to be in court. You have to file a special request to do a telephonic appearance. And even now, here we are 2 years plus out. Most hearings are still done basically over Zoom. There's a lot of Zoom settlement conferences and things. And so I don't think that's going to go away. I love going down to the courthouse and interacting with the judge face to face and doing depositions face to face for sure. But when you've got 4 hearings in a morning, instead of running around from courthouse to courthouse, I can sit right here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that stuff's not going to turn back, right? I mean, there's certain things that are just so much more efficient. Those are going to be here for good.
Absolutely. And jurisdictions all over are really leaning in that direction too. I know I've got colleagues in California that just went, work from home and are still working from home. And the framework's now there, the technology's there, the internet bandwidth and availability is there to where people can really just do that. So yeah, I don't think we're moving back from that anytime soon.
Yeah, interesting. So are you in your office now or home office?
I'm in my office now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent.
So I've got, I like to spread things out. And so I've got a bigger desk here, more monitors, and I don't drive my family nuts. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I would think it would be a little bit distracting with 4 kids in your house.
That's it. Well, and I'm always, I'll always go to fill up my water glass or whatever, because we were remote for a while, but I would, take a break and walk by something and see a little project around the house. And, 45 minutes later, I'm like, I got to get back to work.
Well, that's okay. I mean, listen, when you can't work straight through the day. You need breaks, so it's good. I think it's interesting too. Aside from technology, too, people also realize that you don't have to be in an office. You can be productive at home, and there'll be some hybrid solution that comes out of that.
Absolutely, yeah,
right? Yeah, for sure. Anyway, no, interesting. How many attorneys in the firm?
So in the firm, we have right around 15 right now.
Okay.
We've got 5 in this office, and then we've got 3 other offices, 2 in Utah and 1 out in Texas. So.
Oh, okay, good. Any more expansion plans, or is that it?
At this point, we're not geographically. We're bringing in a lot more attorneys and clerks into this office. This is our main hub. We do the most volume, and so we're at 5 attorneys now. But we've got 2 clerks that are waiting on bar results. Everybody's keeping their fingers crossed for them. And,
good.
And then we're bringing in another attorney here in a couple months. And so, just internal expansion for sure. And honestly, I always tell people, and they're usually surprised to hear, but after everything kind of shut down in March 2020, April or May, things picked up, and we have been, since then, every attorney I know has been just incredibly busy.
Oh.
And I don't know what that shift is, but but busy is a good problem to have.
Yeah, busy is a good thing. Sure, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, well, good. Listen, this has been a really interesting conversation. If somebody wants to reach you, what's the best way to reach you and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, so you can look me up on our website, which is shumwayvan.com. I'm right on there on the front page. You can email me at Garrett, Garrett, at shumwayvan.com. And our numbers are on there too. You can just Google me too. Usually you can find me there and through LinkedIn. So
excellent. Well, good. This has been great. And once again, we have Garrett Chase from Shumway Van. The show is sponsored by EmotionTrac. That's with a C, not a K. And we use artificial intelligence to gather nonverbal communication insights that are used in mediations and trials. Thank you very much, Garrett.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
You bet.